I'm about to do something pretty crazy. I'm a physio and coach, and this is absolutely not something that I would normally recommend to someone else to do. Maybe this is genius, or maybe it's just me getting desperate and ending up doing something that will only mess up my training even more. But at this point I am honestly pretty desperate, and I actually really do believe in the logic behind this. So from today I'm starting a protocol of 3 runs every single day, basically micro dosing running. And I'm going to use myself in an experiment to see if this can finally cure my Achilles injury. First run out of 3 today done. Let me explain how I got to the point where this maybe desperate idea actually started making a lot of sense to me. Since I ran the Valencia Marathon 4 months ago, my Achilles has been super painful on and off. And it has been one of those really frustrating problems where every time I start building my running back up again, even when I do it slowly and sensible with a good progression, it gets really bad again. And what has made it even more frustrating is that I have actually been doing what I would normally recommend. I have been doing my heavy, slow, resistant calf raises for months. I've been trying to progress my running gradually, and I have simply been trying to be sensible, smart, and follow my own and evidence-based advice. And this kind of approach has worked for me before when I had similar kind of Achilles problems. But this time it just hasn't. So over the last few weeks I started thinking about doing something drastically different. What if I skipped all of those evidence-based calf raises completely and replaced that load with lots of short, easy runs instead? Time for my second run of the day. After I started looking into this, I couldn't find any study that had actually tried something similar to this. But yeah, maybe that's not that strange. Maybe my Achilles will get really bad just from a couple of days of this, and maybe I'm just fooling myself here. But at least in my opinion, the logic behind this experiment is actually pretty strong. So that's my second short little 50-minute run of the day done, and the plan from here is pretty simple. 3 easy short runs every single day, no longer than 15 minutes, and if the pain goes above 5 out of 10 on a pain scale during or after a run, I skip the next 3 runs. Since no direct study has actually tested an approach like this, I guess I have to sacrifice myself and my poor Achilles for science here. But hear me out, because I do think there is some pretty solid logic behind this experiment. Because even though strength loading has clearly been shown to help Achilles problems in a really good way, there is not strong evidence that one very specific style of calf raises is the magic part. What the rehab research seems to support much more broadly is controlled progressive tendon loading. And ever since those early Achilles rehab protocols showed good results, most of the research has looked at different versions of that same core idea. And that is what made me start to think about this. Maybe the important thing is not that the load has to come from slow calf raises specifically. Maybe the important thing is just that the tendon gets a controlled stimulus and load it can tolerate and get stronger from and adapt to, and that you have a good, sensible progression in it. And the more I thought about it, the more this experiment actually started to make sense to me. Because one thing I have believed in for a long time, both from my own training and from coaching, is that what often gets the runners injured is not just the total amount of running they do weekly or monthly. It is the one big single dose that becomes a bit too much. And I've even seen this in a big way in my own training, because during the 4 years when I ran every single day and often split my run running into 2 shorter runs every day, those were actually the years where I had the fewest running related injuries of my whole life as a runner, although I still ran more total volume than other years. And that idea became even more interesting to me after this large study came out last year, where they looked at the training for more than 5,000 runners and found that the injury risk went significantly up when one single run was more than 10% longer than the longest run in the previous 30 days. So one spike in one single session seems to matter more than the total weekly increase. So what if I give the tendon a lot of running specific stimulus through actual running? The idea is to give my body lots of small reminders of exactly what it needs to adapt to, without any single run being big enough to really flare it up and break it down so much that it then takes a long time to calm it down and I'm stuck in this Achilles pain circle. So that is how I came to this idea to try micro-dosing running. I just started run number 3 of this first day of this experiment, and I can for sure feel my Achilles, but it's not super painful. And it's only the first day, but I actually really do believe in this approach. But then again, that might just be me trying to convince myself that this will work, because I really want to get back to running properly again. But we'll see. At least I'm trying something, and we will see if I will be limping in 2 days from now. Third day done, that means that I completed 12 of these short little micro runs of about 50 minutes in just 3 days. And I can already say that this is highly impractical. For me right now, I can make it work mostly because I work most days from my home office. So the first run of the day is to the daycare to drop off the kids there, and then I have one short 50-minute run break in the middle of my workday. And the last one now is after the kids have gone to bed. As for how the Achilles feels so far, I can still feel it a little bit, but I would say that the pain for sure hasn't been over 3 out of 10 on the pain scale. And the most encouraging thing is that it has not gotten worse, despite this being a huge jump in my total daily running volume. So that feels like a really positive sign, at least. At the same time, I am still really nervous about the upcoming days, because with Achilles pain, a few good days does not mean that much. There, I'm done with the first week of this experiment, and if I was slightly optimistic before, I am very optimistic now, because look at this. My biggest running week in quite some time had been 22 kilometers, and this week I went straight up to 43.7, basically double, which honestly should not make sense to do a weekly volume increase like that when you're already struggling with an injury. But somehow after 21 of these short runs in 7 days, my Achilles is feeling better than it has in a couple of months. So maybe this is actually working. But this first really positive week doesn't mean that much if it starts getting really painful again as soon as I increase the distance of each run beyond the 2 kilometers or start adding some speed. So for next week the plan is pretty simple. I will keep the same 3 runs a day structure, and I will keep all the runs easy, but I will add about 500 meters to each run. So now I'll move from around 2 kilometers per run to around 2.5 kilometers. 2 weeks in, so that means that this is my 42nd run in 2 weeks. Very short runs, but still 42 runs. And while doing all of these super short runs, I started noticing how my kids move throughout the day. They're constantly doing these short little spontaneous runs here and there. And it made me think that this kind of microdosing of running is probably a more natural way for the body to move and adapt to running. Or maybe that's just me continuing to look for different signs that this could work. But I am just getting more and more convinced and positively surprised. Because over the last couple of days I have actually had the first days in months where I have barely thought about my Achilles at all. And that is a very good sign. With a small increase I made to each run this week, I ended up with 53.5 kilometers for the week, which for many might not sound like that much, but for me right now it is a lot. I haven't done that kind of weekly volume since I ran Valencia when this whole Achilles problem started 4 months ago. So I am starting to get pretty excited, as you probably can tell, because right now I'm running much more than before and Achilles is actually feeling better. But I still think that the real test is of course what comes next, because so far this protocol has only been about short, easy runs. And the real question is of course what happens when I slowly start increasing the load of each individual run and also adding some speed and some higher paces again. And that is what I will begin testing later next week if everything continues to go well, and hopefully get some real answers if this experiment has actually been successful or not. So my 3 runs a day streak had to end after 16 days. And as you can hear, the good thing is that it's not because my Achilles started to hurt a lot. It's because I got a bit of a sore throat and a slight cold. So I'm taking a few easier days now with just one very short, very easy run to give some stimuli to the Achilles, while hopefully be allowing my body to get healthy again. I really want to get back to keep trying this experiment to get some real answers to what happens when I incorporate some more speed and if this thing is actually working. It was feeling very good until today when I got sick. A couple of easier days was enough to start to feel better from that cold, and now comes the real test. Today I'm going to do a little bit of intensity for the first time in quite a long time. So of course no huge session, just 6 times 1 minute of some threshold effort today. And honestly I'm pretty afraid of this one. Because when you had pain in a specific part of your body for as long as I have now, the brain almost starts protecting you from the thing you know has hurt for so long. But okay. Let's do this. This run ended up being 6 kilometers, so my longest run in quite a long time, and the intervals felt way better than expected. No real pain. I have really missed this. I must say that this little experiment on myself has gone even better than I could actually have dreamt of it going. I went from struggling to go beyond 20 kilometers per week with basically constant Achilles pain that had lasted for months to running 43 kilometers in week 1, 53 in week 2, and then still over 44 kilometers in this week, despite getting a bit sick and taking a couple of easier days. And the biggest takeaway for me from all of this is that often the answer is not less load. Sometimes it is just a better distributed load. And for now at least I can say that this microdosing running experiment has been the best thing I've done for my Achilles that has actually made a difference. Now of course the real next test is whether I can transition from this into more normal training without the pain coming back as soon as I increase the single loads more and more. So subscribe if you want to follow how that goes. But for now this weird little experiment somehow worked. And it has made me believe even more strongly in the value of more frequent runs compared to fewer and longer ones. A big disclaimer though, this is of course just a N of 1 with myself, so the conclusions you can draw from this are of course quite limited. But I would absolutely love to see this studied properly one day in a real study with many people, not just for Achilles rehab, but also for other injuries and as a potential quicker and safer way to return to running and increase your weekly running volume. If you want to see me do another quite weird experiment of backwards running, you can click here. Train smart, have fun, and I will see you in the next video.